You're watching The Swingmen, presented by the 94 Feet Report.
Welcome to The Swingmen, presented by the 94 Feet Report. I'm your host, Simon Cherin-Gordon, and I'm excited to get the colloquial ball rolling here. Let's first start by swinging the rock around to our team. We have Hoops Habit and 94 Feet writer Josh Cornelissen with us.
Guys, I don't know if you know this, but North Carolina, where I live, is the largest producer of tobacco. I'm pretty sure that's why I didn't get recruited for college sports.
I actually did know that. I don't know how I did, but we have 94 Feet writer Levi Pitts.
Howdy, y'all.
Co-host of the 94 Feet podcast, Corban Ford.
Hey, y'all. Just realized I'm officially old enough to remember when the artist formerly known as Wesley Johnson was once compared to a young Shawn Marion.
And we have our resident draft expert, Patrick Oxford, back with us this week.
Thanks for having me, Simon. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad you're here too, Patrick. Glad everyone's here. Let's get right into things with the opening tip.
The opening tip.
The Houston Rockets are rolling again. They've won 14 straight games for the second time this season. In fact, since James Harden returned from his strained hamstring, they're 18-1. That was in mid-January. They haven't lost since February. Now we're here in March, guys, and the Rockets still hold a half-game lead over the Warriors. But let's table the Houston Warriors conversation. We've had it before. We'll have it again. Let's focus on Harden and Houston for now. What's impressing you most about how this team and this MVP favorite have been playing lately?
I, for one, am surprised just how cohesive they are, in addition to how dominant they've been. To be in the top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency for a team that runs and guns and is coached by Mike D'Antoni is just surprising to me. Having James Harden and Chris Paul, the backcourt that, I am one of many people who didn't think that would work, but it's been gelling. And he's averaging 31.3 points per game, along with almost 9 assists. And I'm talking about James Harden here. That, to me, is kind of crazy. They've just been dominant, plain and simple.
You're absolutely right, Corbin. And that dominance you can see on the statistics side and just, passes the eye test as well. They are number one in the entire league in offense over this stretch, and they're number 2 in defense, which is just crazy. They're dominating on both ends, and they're completely undefeated in February, on this 14-game win streak. And if you look at basically any statistical model, they've got the Rockets as the favorites to win the title, not the Warriors, because you may think, the Warriors have the playoff experience. Houston's entire rotation has playoff experience now. They added guys like Chris Paul, Joe Johnson, Luka Mbamute, PJ Tucker. All of these guys played in the playoffs last year, and so they're going to really help out the Rockets when it matters the most. And look, I don't always go to Jalen Rose for my stats, but he came through with one today. The Rockets, over this 14-game win streak, have played at the league's slowest pace. They're last in the entire league. This is not your classic Mike D'Antoni 7 seconds or less team that's just going to, get worn down in the playoffs when things slow down and they're not going to be able to generate offense. This team is generating offense at a slow pace, and I think that could bode well. This has staying power into the postseason.
Josh, I actually do go to Jalen Rose for all my statistics, but that's probably why I'm hosting the show. Corbin, that's a crazy stat, right?
Simon, I'm still dying from your superior analytic sources, but I, for one, am astounded by that because that just shows that they're playing just at a superior level, whether it's fast or if it gets bogged down, they have to slow it down. A stat I had pulled up already was that Houston this past month of February has averaged 100 total points per game on 47% shooting from the field and a shade under 40% shooting from 3. So, you're not stopping them either way. And having 2 floor generals who can play at both paces. Harden is known for his methodical style, and Chris Paul was hammered for years for pounding the mess out of the ball. But to say that, we can run up and down and also pick you apart in the half court, they're a scary team.
Corbin, you're absolutely right. They are scary. And you're right to mention Chris Paul and James Harden. That pairing is incredible, and both are probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. But I think we shouldn't overlook the third member of this trio, which is Clint Capella. The Rockets are 34-1 while all 3 of those guys are healthy and playing. 34-1. That's not a statistical anomaly anymore. That's brilliant. And Clint Capella, if you go down the list, he might just be the best starting center in the entire Western Conference playoff field. which is insane to think of. He even came out and said that gives them an edge over the Warriors. You know, they have an elite backcourt to match the Rockets. They don't have elite centers. They're trotting out JaVale McGee as starting right now. That's not going to work. And Clint Capella is killing teams. He's averaging a double-double, and he's got a 65.7 effective field goal percentage. That's the best in the league among rotation players. And he just dropped 22 and 14 on the Clippers the other night. Capella is playing really well, and he fits his role perfectly. He doesn't need the ball. He's going to catch it on the lobs. He's going to, slam to the rim and pick and rolls. And he's going to play really good, intelligent, quick hands on defense. And so I think that he's the perfect fit for this team. And again, if we're looking at reasons why the Rockets might be able to sustain in the playoffs, I think it's one of the reasons.
All right, guys, let's transition to the other hottest team in the Western Conference right now. A bit more of a surprise, though, the New Orleans Pelicans. Last week on the show, the general feeling from the panel was that this team would end up outside the top 8. Since then, they're 4-0. They've won 7 in a row overall. They're tied for 5th in the West, and Anthony Davis is averaging 39 points, 15 rebounds, and damn near 3 blocks and 3 steals per game during that winning streak. Clearly, he's not going to average 40 and 15 the rest of the way, but how sustainable is what AD is doing based on what you guys have seen? And if and when AD does come back down to earth, do you think the Pelicans can remain in solid playoff positioning, or is that really going to drop them back to where we talked about them being?
Yeah, Anthony Davis has been absolutely spectacular this month, and I hate to say it, I don't know if it's going to sustain in the long term for either him or the team. The team is shooting 34% from deep since Cousins went down. That number was at 37% before the injury. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but whenever your net differential is 0.8, you need every single percent from 3 you can get. So I think that whenever Davis does eventually come down to earth, because, I mean, as amazing as he has been, this kind of play is just unsustainable long term. When he comes down to earth, I think that there's going to be a linear decline with the Pelicans play.
Like you said, Patrick, Davis won't be sustaining his 40 and 15 stat line. And once he goes down to earth and starts progressing back to the mean, the Pelicans are going to suffer. And once the Pelicans suffer, they could easily be either knocked completely out of the playoffs or at least down close to the 8th or 7th seed. And it's just extremely unlikely to me that without Davis playing the way he is, that they can sustain this type of win streak. And they need to win at least probably 9 or 10 of their next 21 games to actually end up in the playoffs. And I just am not sure that's going to happen without Davis remaining in his magical Christmas land that he has in February.
Yeah, guys, it's interesting. You know, I went on our executive producer Alex West's podcast earlier this season, and I gave a kind of hot take at the time. I said that I think DeMarcus Cousins is more vital to what this team is doing than Anthony Davis, even though the net rating, I probably got some numbers from Jalen Rose. I don't know, but the numbers didn't back it up. But I think part of what I'm saying is starting to come to fruition here, because I think AD has taken a lesson from DeMarcus Cousins in how if he is more dominant and more assertive and more aggressive, that really is what this team needs from a guy to lead its offense, because there's just not enough talent around him. On the flip side, we've never seen AD play like this. We've certainly never seen him sustain it for a long period of time, and we've seen him suffer a lot of injuries. So what I want to throw back to you guys is, if AD keeps taking this massive usage, this, huge workload, this huge offensive burden, is he going to, sustain it defensively? And more importantly, is he going to be able to stay on the court for a stretch run?
Yeah, Anthony Davis has definitely had his injury concerns in the past. It'll be interesting to see if this wear and tear not only affects him staying on the court, but when he does get to the playoffs, and is he going to have anything left in the tank? If they do kind of decline, as me and Levi both think they will, and they end up in that maybe 7th or 8th seed, that means you're going up against the Golden State Warriors or the Houston Rockets. And if AD is operating on 70% fuel, or whatever kind of analogy you want to make for however much he has left in the tank, it's not going to be enough to even really keep it competitive against teams of that nature.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, Patrick. I think that a big draw for the Pelicans in the beginning of the season was how important both of their guys were. DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis were two incredibly well-gifted and amazing players, and having to guard both of them on the floor at the same time was a daunting task. And now, as you can see with Anthony Davis, he's work into it and getting results for the team. But without DeMarcus Cousins, even if they are able to make it into the playoffs, there's just no telling how that is going to translate. Without Cousins, there's no second man. There's nobody other than Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis becomes that entire team, and I'm just not sure it's going to sustain itself.
All right, guys. We just talked about Harden and the Rockets. We talked about AD and the Pels. So naturally, it's time to move to the MVP race. Look, obviously, if Houston keeps winning at this clip, Harden is uncatchable. But just as AD's numbers are unsustainable, so too is Houston's 1,000 winning percentage in the month of February. But beyond Houston losing a few games, which, it will happen, what specifically else has to happen for AD to make this a real race? And can anyone else get into this race?
Simon, I don't really think there's a case for anyone. I think Harden's got this whole MVP race wrapped up nicely. I'm pretty confident in it. Honestly, I might put some money down tomorrow, honestly, depending on what the odds are looking like.
I think everyone knows that James Harden is the favorite. He's earned that. He's the best player on the best team. But what Anthony Davis has been doing this month is insane. It's incredible. The Pelicans lost to DeMarcus Cousins, who arguably was playing the best of any player on their team this year. And they've won 7 straight. They're tied in the loss column for the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. Look, the narrative matters in these things, and Anthony Davis has put this team on his back and is carrying them up the standings in the Western Conference. That's incredible. That's insane. That's the kind of thing that gets you in the MVP conversation. Look, he wasn't even in the top 10 discussion prior to the last few weeks, and for him to have vaulted all the way to a point where we're talking about him as the second best candidate, that speaks to the narrative he's already gathering. Look, if you look at the last 20 years, the only players to put up the averages that Anthony Davis has, 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists, it's Anthony Davis and it's Shaq. That's it. Extend it back another decade, all you're doing is adding Karl Malone and Charles Barkley. Look, these are Hall of Famers. This is special numbers that Anthony Davis is putting up. And if he continues to drop 40 and 15s and the Pelicans end up with home court advantage in the playoffs, that's the kind of narrative and the statistical dominance that could overcome someone like James Harden, who has help. And I think as Chris Paul stays healthy and continues to play better, that maybe hurts James Harden's case a little bit and opens the door for Anthony Davis, if he continues playing at the same level, to kind of wheedle his way in there and have a shot at winning this thing.
All right, guys, let's move on to buy or sell.
Buy or sell.
We're going to start with the Washington Wizards here. They're 10-4 since John Wall's knee surgery back at the end of January. The ball is moving better. Morale seems to be up. But do you buy or sell that Washington is actually better without Wall? We'll start with Corban on this one.
Man, I'm selling that. You can't tell me that a guy averaging 20 points and 10 assists on 50% shooting from the field and from 3 couldn't help any team right now in the NBA. I mean, I get that there's chemistry issues, but come on, for real? No. It's like Boston saying, oh, we're second in the East. Like, I guess we don't need Gordon Hayward. Like, sure, you need someone that can give that kind of production. And for anyone to say otherwise,
Yeah, Corban hit the nail on the head on this one. I'm selling this one too, Simon. I just think that, like he said, when you're averaging 20 and 10, you're going to be a positive to your team. And even though you could argue it's some sort of Ewing effect, I think that it's pretty easy to just chalk up to a hot streak thanks to Bradley Beal's good play.
All right, guys, let's move on to another team that's holding strong without an injured star. It's a little smaller sample size here, though. The Timberwolves are 2-0 with Jimmy Butler out of the lineup, and after his meniscus surgery, it seems like he's going to be out a considerable amount longer, if not the rest of the regular season. Right now, they're in the number 3 seed, a game ahead of San Antonio. Guys, do you buy or sell the Timberwolves having any chance of holding on to home court advantage with the news that Butler's going to miss most, if not all, of the season? Josh?
Simon, I'm going to sell. I do think the loss of Shabazz Muhammad is really going to hurt. Oh, wait, Jimmy Butler? All right, I'm still going to sell because the loss of Jimmy Butler definitely hurts the Timberwolves. He has by far been the Timberwolves' best player on both ends. And so losing that is definitely going to hurt them. And they don't have much margin for error here. The Timberwolves are currently projected by 538 to win 48 games, so 3rd in the West, right where they sit now. But those projections don't know that Butler's hurt. And 9th and 10th teams are projected to win 44. So if they drop back just a couple of games, not only do they lose home court advantage, the talk starts to go that they may miss the playoffs altogether, which is insane to say, but there's not much margin for error. And so they walk along the edge of a knife here. And if they stray but a little, they're going to fail. And that's going to be a death blow to this fan base that is desperately waiting for their return to the postseason.
You know, Josh, I could see why you'd be apprehensive about the Timberwolves holding on to home court or even making the playoffs, but I have 2 words for you. Nemanja Bjelica. Dude is coming in clutch for the Timberwolves. They put him in the starting lineup in place of Jimmy Butler. They have about a plus 11 point differential with that starting lineup in 254 minutes. Well, not just starting lineup, just whenever they've been in together. So I think this is a lineup that could provide the spacing maybe they didn't have, that's going to allow Karl Anthony Towns to flourish with the touches that are available with Jimmy Butler out.
All right, let's go back to James Harden, guys. We have another stupid disrespect controversy to talk about, and maybe I shouldn't reveal how I feel about it as the host, but now it's out in the open. Here's what happened. James Harden crossed up Wes Johnson in an embarrassing fashion in LA on Wednesday. He stared him down before hitting a gaping wide open 3. I guess I have to ask you, do you buy that James Harden was disrespecting Johnson or disrespecting the game with what he did? We'll start with Patrick.
James Harden was absolutely disrespecting Wesley Johnson with what he did, and I have no issue with it whatsoever. This isn't an issue like where Steve Kerr was disrespecting the Suns by giving the clipboard over to Draymond. This was disrespect the old-fashioned way, on the court. I outdid you because I have better moves than you have defense. He did it all night, and you know what? He earned that right to disrespect him.
So Steve Kerr is not just saying, I have better player coaches than you have coaches in Phoenix? I mean, what is this? I disagree strongly, but I do agree with you that I love what James did. What do you think, Levi? Do you buy that there was any disrespect here or that it matters?
Simon, I am absolutely selling this. The idea that James Harden is disrespecting the game by doing what he did to Wes Johnson is an absolute ridiculous idea. What he did to Wes Johnson was awesome. It was a super cool move, and he did what he had to do to show him that he was better than him. It's something that makes the NBA great, and I don't think that we should take that away. That is exactly what you want from your league MVP.
All right, last buy or sell here. There have been quiet rumblings about Philadelphia as a potential LeBron James destination for a while now, including a take from our very own Alex West. Maybe you saw it on the Swingmen trailer. He's been on that train for a while. But now there's 3 billboards in Philadelphia, and the rumor mill is starting to churn. Guys, do you buy or sell this as a real possibility? We'll start with Corban.
Totally selling that, man. Philadelphia, LeBron, no. If he's going anywhere, it's the City Angels. Why would he go to cold Philadelphia? Play with another 6'8" guy who can't shoot, just clocks spacing, Embiid talking more trash than, I don't know, passing the ball. No. If he's not staying in Cleveland, he's going to LA with the Lakers. Can we stop? They could buy all the billboards in the world. They could put it up in the moon. Come on now.
I hear you, Corban. Philly might be cold, but I'm going to buy that this is a real thing. Look, I got 3 reasons for you. 1, cap space. Philly's got the cap space. Not a lot of teams do. Sure, the Lakers do, but Philly's got cap space. 2, Philly's in the East. So they don't have to deal with the Warriors and the Rockets and Anthony Davis and who knows what else. They got the East. And sure, everybody talk about the Celtics and the Raptors, but LeBron has owned the East, and he has every reason to stay there and continue to own it. And 3rd, there's already veteran pieces in place as well as young guys that are going to sustain success. And I think what's really attractive to LeBron is Joel Embiid. LeBron hasn't played with a true rim protector since Zydrunas Ilgauskas. He's had a bunch of undersized, quicker guys like Chris Bosh and Tristan Thompson. I think having a true rim protector back there is going to free LeBron James up to just rove around the court, to get steals, and I think that could be a deadly combination. I think it's going to be really attractive to him. So do I think Philly's the front runner? No, but I think that there is some real legs to this.
After hearing Kawhi Leonard was expected to miss the rest of the season, what I think was just a week ago, we're now hearing that he'll be back in March. There's no point in speculating on what's true here. This could change again tomorrow. But if Leonard is back and has time to get acclimated, as a March return would suggest, does that materially change the Western hierarchy heading into the playoffs?
All right, so I'm not sure. I'm really rather torn on this. I feel Kawhi Leonard returning will surely be an emotional boost for the Spurs. The only question I have is, which Kawhi Leonard are the Spurs getting? Yes, he already played 9 games. He had 16 points, about 5 rebounds and 4 assists per game. However, outside of a few flashes, you could see that he wasn't the same Kawhi Leonard. And if he's not going to be 100% effective, then I don't really see the logic in bringing him back for what could be, I don't know, a second-round exit. I like the Spurs, but I don't know how they're going to match up with the Rockets or the Warriors this year. So I don't know if he comes back and he's playing just as he was, last year, which is a stretch. But if he's pretty effective, then sure. But I wouldn't expect him to go on some world-beating Zaza revenge tour. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, Corbin. I think that this is a really tough one in general. And while last year Kawhi cemented himself as a top 5 player and ended up third in MVP voting, this nasty ankle injury combined with his multiple-month quadriceps injury, it feels like if he comes back, it's going to depend heavily on which Kawhi we're getting, whether we're getting this top 5 player that we saw be so incredible in the 16-17 season, or if we're getting the measly 16 points and 5 rebounds Kawhi that we saw earlier in the season. It's just hard to tell whether he's going to help them at all if he doesn't come back at full strength like he was in last year's season.
Yeah, this has really just been the season of injuries that are difficult to talk about. We have Markelle Fultz in Philly. Still don't know what to make of that, and Kawhi's been the exact same way. Like I said, well, this report is encouraging. Is it true, and what Kawhi are we going to see? You guys hit it on the head. Let's move on. Commissioner Adam Silver released a memo this week promising, quote, the swiftest and harshest punishment possible from the league office to tanking teams. Of course, evidence that a team is tanking is hard to come by, and punishing them for making the logical decision based on the incentives that the league itself institutes seems hypocritical. Is there any merit to Silver's memo, both in terms of him having the right to say what he's saying, and also him having the ability to hand out these punishments he's talking about, whatever they may be?
Silver absolutely has the right to do whatever he wants to tanking teams. I think if it hurts the value of the league, he absolutely should. The problem here is there's no evidence that there's really tanking beyond what's historically gone on. If you look back, I wrote an article earlier this week on historical ranking of teams, and the worst team of all time, the 1993 Dallas Mavericks. They had 11 wins. The 2012 Bobcats, the next worst team, 7 wins. The 2000 Clippers, 15 wins. So the Suns of this year and the Kings of this year ranked 11th and 19th worst historically by this article that I wrote. But they have 19 and 18 wins for the Suns and Kings respectively. So I don't think it's a matter of the players not going out there and trying. Despite how bad they are, they're winning more games than you'd expect given how bad they are.
Patrick, I think you're right. There hasn't been one team that has been abysmal this year. So these teams have already banked more wins than some of the worst teams in league history. But the sheer volume of teams that are going to be trying to lose games down the stretch has to worry the league, and specifically Adam Silver. Out of the 9 teams that seem to be racing for the bottom, they are 1-23 since the All-Star break in games not played against each other. That's really bad. And what that does is it is creating this narrative where everybody's talking about tanking. Everybody's talking about teams trying to lose games. And that's not the image the league wants. We know this is a big deal to not only Adam Silver, but the league's governors, because they just passed lottery reform that's going to take place next year. Now, that doesn't stop anything for this year. And so that's why I think Adam Silver mentioned that he's going to have strict penalties coming down. It's not lucrative for the NBA to have teams not trying to win, because then why are fans going to spend money to watch those games on the shorter term league pass that they pay, game by game? Why are they going to show up at the arena to watch 2 crappy teams play each other, to see them play like their 14th and 15th men? Like, nobody wants to watch that. And so I think that it's not going to make money for the league. And that's what Adam Silver's there to do. Now, Adam Silver, he's not going to punish teams for just resting veterans or any of the normal tanking stuff. I think it's this next level of stuff that he's stopping. ESPN's Tim McMahon and Brian Windhurst recently wrote a piece about the tankathon, and in it, they referred to something called reverse analytics, which is suggesting that teams are going to put together the worst possible lineups on the court. It's like the opposite of synergy. And so how can teams lose better without being obvious about it? And I think that if Silver or the league office catches a paper trail of any of this, that's where the penalties could come down. Otherwise, this is probably a little bit more smoke than anything else.
All right, let's move on to by the numbers. After stepping to the line and making 3 clutch free throws to tie Tuesday's Heat Sixers game at 100 apiece, Dwyane Wade intentionally fouled Ben Simmons with 27 seconds left in the game. The move was probably a result of confusion, but it ended up working out. Simmons split the free throws and gave Wade a chance to go down and hit the game winner that he desperately seemed to want to take. But guys, ignoring the fact that most coaches are too risk averse to ever do anything like this intentionally, is there an argument to be made that it is in fact a viable strategy to foul in a tie game?
I find that interesting, Simon, because in some cases it works pretty well, and in other cases it can really backfire on you. This play actually reminded me of a play a couple of days ago when the Bulls played the 76ers, and the Bulls were up 115, 114. They fouled Simmons. He made both free throws, and the Bulls ended up losing. So I don't know if you can quantify that. I'm not the person to speak on it. Maybe the next person can take it from here.
Well, first, I want to mention that Dwyane Wade both committed the foul and hit that game-winning shot with the names of Joaquin Oliver on his shoes. It was one of the 17 shooting victims last week. And that young man was buried in a Dwyane Wade Miami Heat jersey. So I think it was a great tribute, and perhaps a little bit of that spirit inspired Wade to do some creative things here at the end of the game. So I think what's interesting is the play-by-play. So Wade gets fouled, and initially the refs aren't sure if it's a 2 or a 3, so they go to review. Spoelstra calls everyone together, and he says basically, hey, once Wade hits both of these, let's foul, because they were still going to be down 1. Well, then the refs award Wade 3 free throws, and somewhere it was lost in translation that Spoelstra didn't want them to foul if it was a tie game. But Wade and Dragic, standing on the court, talked among themselves and decided, hey, we don't think Simmons will hit these. Let's get another shot at the end of the game. So they went ahead and fouled Simmons when he got the ball. Now, what I think is interesting is that this isn't a true end-of-game situation because there was still going to be a couple seconds left on the clock after the shot. So the Sixers got the ball back with 27 on the clock, which means Miami was guaranteed to have one last shot. So it wasn't like they needed to foul to be able to get another shot. So I think that makes this an even murkier situation here. But as far as the specific numbers, I think there's a lot of noise there as to whether this is a good thing or not. And so it's hard to say whether Wade made the right decision.
Yeah, it certainly is a murky situation, Josh. And I don't know. The math to me makes sense. I think that, Miami didn't, if they're down 1, then they have to shoot before the shot clock expires, which gives the ball back to Philly. So you can't just chalk it up to, does Miami have a better chance to score than Ben Simmons' point differential, and with Philly having the last possession, all that stuff. It's a complicated situation. But the real reason I think that this is not going to become a viable strategy, at least for a long time, is the idea of risk aversion. Coaches are starting to come around on some things that are risky but make sense, like intentionally fouling when up 3 within the final 5 seconds, as well as things like in other sports, going for it on 4th down in football. We saw that in the Super Bowl payoff for the Philadelphia Eagles. But usually coaches don't start being bold like that until there is a statistical impetus, until it starts to gain some steam and starts to be seen as an acceptable strategy. Risk aversion's a real thing, and I think that the math always has to become clear before we start to see coaches taking these so-called risks. All right, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Before we go, any last-second shots, buzzer beaters? We'll go to Josh Cornelissen.
It was a lot of fun, guys. And my biggest question right now is, what was Steph Curry doing with a golf club in his hotel room?
I'm just glad. When I first saw that headline, I thought that he had injured himself. So I don't know what he was doing, and I personally don't care. But let's go to Levi Pitts.
Well, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Toronto Raptors will be the number 1 seed in the East.
Corban Ford.
It's been fun, y'all. Only 111 days left until the NBA draft.
And Patrick Oxford, close us out.
So I'm going to use this time to go ahead and plug myself here. Check out 2 articles I've written this week, one on historical ratings of teams and the other on Tennessee's forward Admiral Schofield.
I want to kick it to Jalen Rose, but I don't see him right now. I really want to get his take on this fouling with the tie game thing. But I guess we'll have to wait till next time for that. Thanks for watching The Swingmen, presented by the 94 Feet Report. I'm your host, Simon Cherin-Gordon. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our future episodes. Follow us on Twitter at the 94 Feet Report, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thanks for watching The Swingmen, presented by the 94 Feet Report.